Hello, Virgo. Tomorrow. I am not going to bury that word in the middle of a sentence or soften it into something more cautious. Before I have even told you why, tomorrow is the word this reading has been built around since the moment I sat with your energy and felt the specific and arriving form of something that is not theoretical anymore, in the way it might have felt theoretical a month ago or even a week ago, when the hoping was still abstract enough to be managed quietly without the body fully reacting to it. I want to be honest with you about what kind of reading this is before it begins in full. This is not the kind of reading that names a vague window stretched across weeks so that whenever something eventually happens, it can be credited to the reading in the retroactive and convenient form that vague windows always allow for whatever arrives, whenever it arrives. This reading names the day, tomorrow, because that is what the field around your life is actually showing me, not because a specific day makes for a better title in the attention grabbing form that specific days sometimes serve, without the specific day actually being supported by anything real in the reading itself. This reading has 4 layers. Stay for every single one, because the 4th layer is what to actually do between right now and tomorrow, so that whatever arrives finds you ready, rather than caught off guard by something you had stopped letting yourself fully expect. Virgo, my beautiful Virgo, the moment you have been waiting for is closer than one more day away. Welcome. Stay with every word. The first layer, and this one is about the waiting itself before I tell you what tomorrow contains, because understanding what the waiting has cost you is part of understanding why tomorrow matters as much as it does. I feel something very specific in your energy, and I want to name it precisely, because the precise naming is what makes a reading land in the chest rather than only in the mind. You have a moment in mind, a specific one, not a general hope for things to improve, but an actual moment that you have been picturing in quiet, unguarded seconds for longer than you have told anyone. A specific word being said, or a specific door opening, or a specific person finally being clear about what they want in the precise and particular form that the picturing has taken, rather than the general and approximate form of someone who simply hopes for things to get better without the specific shape that your picturing has had. And somewhere along the way, the picturing started to hurt a little, not because the hoping is wrong, but because hoping for something specific for long enough without it arriving teaches a person to brace, even while still hoping. That is not contradiction. That is what long waiting actually does. To someone who refuses to fully give up, in the specific and quietly exhausting form of holding two things at once, the hope that has not died, and the bracing that learned from every time the hope was not met. Spirit wants me to say this clearly. The bracing was reasonable, given everything you have lived through up to this point, in the specific and earned form of a protective habit built from real experience rather than from nowhere, but it was built for a longer wait than what is actually left. The second layer, stay with me, because this is where tomorrow gets specific. Rather than staying in the atmospheric and promising form that readings can sometimes stay in without ever naming what is actually arriving. What is arriving tomorrow is not vague good energy. It is a specific shift in a situation that has felt stuck or unclear or quietly painful for longer than feels fair. To the person who has been inside it, day after day, without the shift arriving until now, three things are converging tomorrow, and they are connected to each other rather than arriving as separate, disconnected events that happen to share the same day without relating to one another. The first is clarity about where you actually stand with the person or situation that has occupied the most space. In your hoping, clarity that replaces guessing with something you can actually act on in the concrete and usable form of information, rather than the ongoing and effortful form of interpretation that guessing has required of you for the period that preceded tomorrow. The second is a shift in tone and how this person or this situation approaches you, a directness that was not there before, a willingness to say the thing, rather than continue circling it in the indirect and partial form that has characterized the recent period of the situation being what it has been before tomorrow changes its shape. And the third is internal, a settling in your own chest. Once the clarity and the directness arrive, the specific physical sensation of finally being able to exhale, a breath you did not realize you had been holding part way for a long time in the chronic and background form of a held breath, that becomes the new baseline without announcing itself as something being held, rather than simply how breathing feels now. The third layer, stay with me, because this is the roadmap for how tomorrow actually unfolds in the specific and useful form of what to watch for rather than only what to hope for. Watch for this today, before tomorrow even arrives. A small shift in tone in a message or a conversation that feels slightly different from the pattern you have grown used to, small enough that you might almost miss it if you were not paying attention. A little more warmth or a little more directness than the recent pattern has had. Tomorrow itself, watch for the clarity arriving directly, not hinted at, not implied, said or shown plainly enough that you do not have to interpret it in the specific and direct form that ends the guessing, rather than extending it into another round of analysis. And in the days just after tomorrow, watch for the settling, the relief that confirms what tomorrow delivered was not a fluke, but the actual beginning of something different in the sustained and continuing form of a shift that holds rather than reverting back to the pattern that preceded tomorrow. Whew. Now, honestly, some of you have heard tomorrow before in other readings, and tomorrow arrived as an ordinary day in the specific and disappointing form of a promised day that did not deliver what the promising suggested it would. I understand that history, and I am not asking you to set aside your caution. What I am asking is smaller. Notice the shift in tone today. If it comes, let tomorrow show you what it shows you. Before deciding what this reading was worth, in the evidence-based and fair form of judging a reading by what actually arrives, rather than by the history of readings that came before it, the fourth layer, what to actually do between now and tomorrow in the specific and practical form that positions you to receive what is arriving, rather than to brace against it or to over prepare for it in ways that exhaust you before tomorrow has even arrived. Do not rehearse the conversation you think is coming in your head 20 times before it has even happened. Let it actually happen first. The real version is rarely identical to the one we script in advance, and the rehearsing often costs more than it prepares you for. In the anxious and depleting form of imagining the same scene over and over before the actual scene has had the chance to simply happen, let yourself rest tonight, even if your mind wants to stay alert, watching for signs. You will meet tomorrow better rested than wound tight from anticipating it. In the specific and practical form of someone who shows up for a significant day from a grounded and rested place, rather than the depleted and over alert place that a sleepless night of watching would leave you in instead. And when clarity does arrive, however it arrives, let yourself actually feel it without immediately auditing whether you deserve it or whether it is too good to be real. That auditing can wait. Just for a moment, let the relief be only relief, in the brief and uncomplicated form of something good simply being received, before the analyzing returns to its usual place. In the Virgo mind, that processes everything, including the good things, through the careful and assessing form that it applies to everything else. You are protected, whatever tomorrow brings, whether it is the conversation you have been waiting for or simply the beginning of more clarity than you have had in a long time, in the arriving and confirming form of something real rather than something only hoped for. Take gentle care of yourself tonight, my beautiful Virgo. Tomorrow is close, and you are more ready for it than the bracing has let you believe. Drop a comment below and tell me what moment you have been quietly waiting for, because naming it here is its own small act of letting the hope be a little less guarded. And if this landed somewhere real, subscribe. There is more coming.